Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. I am your host, the dreaded DM, DBJ. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the channel RPG with DBJ. To let everyone know, this channel is simulcast over on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server. If you join our Discord server, slide down to the boiler room, and that's where all the cool kids hang out. Now, if you are also new, we like to take a subject. We're talking about gods and goddesses of pantheons for our tabletop RPG games. And we talk about it all week long. And each day we kind of subdivide it. We have a little theme. And today is World Building Wednesday. Sorry about that. And on World Building Wednesday, whatever subject we're talking about, no matter how concrete or pie in the sky or ephemeral or whatever, we are here to build ourselves a world, a setting where our subject is the main focus of our world. And so, yes, in tabletop role-playing games, especially our classic fantasy games, Dungeons and Dragons, of course, the world's most popular role-playing game, we have clerics. And clerics usually, when we sit down to create our settings in our worlds, we come up with some kind of gods. We pick domains for them and whatnot. And I don't have any evidence of this. It's pretty anecdotal. But for the most part, when we sit down to create our worlds, usually the gods and their place in the world tends to be kind of an afterthought. And I mean that in a very generalized sense. Like, we may understand our world. How many times have we defaulted to the gods are gone, or the gods are dead and they don't exist anymore? If you're a cleric, you just believe in an ideal or something, right? We like to put them on a back burner because, much like the argument about having other humanistic races like Dragonborn or Tiefling in the world, because you now have to explain where they came from. You have in a negative sense, some people consider it baggage. The same goes with pantheons of gods, right? Like, who are they? They're ultimate powered. If people believe in them, why haven't they stopped this post-apocalyptic world we've been creating? Because we love to have fallen empires in post-apocalyptic settings. So why haven't they done something about it and whatnot? And then we have the added issue. Hey Cam, we have the added issue of dealing with this idea that if there are gods, like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did people start believing in them and then they existed? Did the gods exist and create mankind? And if they did, what is their vested interest in it? And what's their purpose? And so, like, and for those who don't know, of course you can participate in the show live on Twitch and the YouTube chat. If you want to post links and images and maybe talk a little bit longer because you're limited by character, the number of characters, you can also use our Discord server, which brings me to one of our moderators and longtime resident here here near RPG with DBJ is Tesla Ranger. And Tesla Ranger puts in the under tvtropes.org, the Pantheon, the true story of the Egyptian deities comic book. I didn't know there was a comic book related to it, but it makes sense. Pantheon contains the Pantheon contains incest, decapitation, suspicious salad. I think that sounds dirty amongst everything else. Fighting hippos, flying cows, a boat race, resurrections, lots of scorpions, and a golden willy. And I think it sounds like what it is, right? Something that happens with pantheons of gods is that I think sometimes we tend to avoid all the lurid, yeah, we avoid all the lurid details, the like, I'll bring it up again, the incest, the decapitations, the strangisms, like like flying cows and all of the backstabbing and the lying to each other. And we tend to avoid those kind of things because rightly so, as a mortal person, in our mortal realm, we like to think of these divine beings as being better than us. And of course they wouldn't have infighting. Why would they? Now we do have the classic, light against dark and fire against ice and technology against, elementals in nature. But, the classic infighting, like I brought up before about soap operas and reality shows and all of the backstabbing and infighting and I think that's missing sometimes. We tend to miss it because, like I said, we think of them as better than us when that's where the drama comes from. It's that friction. And so, yeah, Red Dice Diary says sounds about right for polytheistic pantheons. Oh yeah, and a lot of this stuff happens in cycles, right? The certain one or more of the gods gets overthrown and imprisoned or exiled, and then they come back, and the whole it's like, why hasn't Thor killed Loki yet? It's because he hasn't. Right? It's why hasn't Hera cut off Zeus's tallywhacker? Because she hasn't. It's just it's a constant cycle of growth and rebirth and that kind of thing. Heck, even in the Norse mythology, I believe their gods. Well, no, I'm thinking comic books. That's wrong. But like their gods aren't necessarily immortal. They're long lived, but they're not immortal. And so some will be killed, and others will come and take their place. But they kind of take their place in the same way. In the comic books, they've even hinted that Thor will take Odin's place with the one eye and the ravens and the world tree and the whole nine yards. Red Dice Diary says one of the things I love about classic pantheons is that they have all the faults of humanity just dialed up to 11. Yeah, that's my thing. Dial it up to 11, right? And they do. If we think about it, non-gaming wise, a lot of times we explain the gods were used or mythology was used to explain how the world operates, right? It's parents sitting down explaining to children when the kids keep saying why, and why does the sun set? Why does it rain? Why do you have why are you and my uncle at odds with each other all the time, right? Why does the young girl I like in class, why does she punch me in the arm and run away? And it explains this. Why does food rot? Why does it snow and then get hot again? Or why are there floods? And so a lot of the the ways we explain the worlds, we start giving them names. Like, well, there's storms because there's a god of storms up there who gets upset and throws lightning bolts. It's that kind of thing. It's raining because the gods are peeing on the back of your neck. We tend to do a lot of those dumb things. But what if it's real? Dead Man says the Greek gods were indestructible, so Hera couldn't cut off Zeus's member. I'm gonna argue with that, Dead Man. I think she could have cut it off. Although maybe she got tired of doing it because she had a whole a bucket full of tallywhackers because it kept coming back again. Hera, give me back my balls and cock. She's like, no. But that's as foolish as that sounds. Maybe that is a godism in your world, right? Cutting off the manhood and putting it up on the shelf and saying you better beg me to get it back. I'm not giving that back to you. Red Dice says there would have been a lot less monsters if she could have done. Oh man, Zeus. I'm sure there's a statistic out there, but in the darkest, deepest reaches of Greek mythology, I'm going to guess it's got to be double digits. I'm going to guess more than 20 monsters and demigods Zeus has given birth to. I'm going to guess it's in the 20-ish range, but it might even be more than that. I don't know. Dead Man says close to 50. Yeah. 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 Oh man, yeah, close to 50 dead men. Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. I may have disagreed with you on the hair cutting off his thing, although maybe if she couldn't cut it off, she could put it like in a put it in a cage that leads to Tartarus or something. I've got the key. He's like, no. Yeah, dead rice. She should. Red Dice Diaries says they should have named him Juice. Squirt. Oh, is that immortal? Oh my goodness. Anyway, but you get the point, right? I mean, how much fun is that though? In a terrible sense for us mortals, but like having the gods run around. So here on the world building, I thought we should try to break some of the molds that we're used to. Now, one of the things is, well, let's have the gods run around in our setting. Um, I'll say it again, and I'll say it tomorrow, all week long, that one of the hardest things for us to get our minds past is to have social interactions, and of course tomorrow's going to be like environmental interactions with gods who have personalities and everything, yet the PCs, the player characters, cannot and will not be able to kill them. They have no stats. You can't. There's no way to destroy them as presented, right? They are gods. Stop it, mortals. You're not going to kill them. Now, I say that with the asterisk on the end because there are methods for player characters to fight against the gods, and I mean mechanically, like die rolling. Um, there are a number of ways we could incorporate this into the world and into our setting. But before we start talking about, if you stat it, they can kill it mantra, I think we could have a setting where the gods do take place and we can talk to them. And one of the ways of doing that is to do one of two things. Extremely humanize the gods. Like for example, maybe there's a god of related to like carousing and partying, and every once in a while, like this god will start a party somewhere that lasts like weeks on end, and people come from far and wide to take part in the parties of drinking and debauchery, and the gods standing there in the middle of the tavern like chug chug chug, and everyone's just like they're playing a song like shots 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 shots, like I mean yep. Red Dice says, I nominate Pan. Yeah, I mean, playing music and people getting lost. Maybe they lose um, the god of parties and debauchery. Like people start losing their sense of time. They're away from their families for 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months later, and they can barely sleep. And every time they're like, I can't go on, and the god's like, come on, we're gonna party. You know what I mean? They are the epitome of the Americanized bro dude. Like you know what I mean? Like they've got like a bong in one hand and like some kind of like really cheap but but destructive alcohol in the other hand, and they're like, "Come on, dude!" Yeah, yep. Dead man says, it could be Pan. Dead man says, or Demeter, the god of wine and drinking. Yep. Or it could even be. You could even attach something like that to a god of the harvest, like for 2 months out the year, the god of harvest is like, you know what, we did a lot of hard work, guys, thank you very much for all your planting. You're ready for, in the fall, you're ready for the winter, you've harvested everything, but you know what, now it's time to party, right? And that's just one aspect where, again, when the gods have their own dominion, they really don't see much outside of that. And the player characters could get involved in the, I need to go on an adventure, but I might get sucked up into this 2 month party going on while people are passing out in the streets because they're losing sleep, and the guy's like walking in on them in their homes while they're on the toilet or something, like, dude, what are you doing? The guy's like, come on, we need you. And in a weird way, this could be a good thing for people who are like homebodies, or they have a crush on someone that they have a an attraction to, and the god is like, come on man, come on out of your shell, or come on, young lady, and we're trying to hook people up together, and hooking them up into bonds that the community might not be appropriately adjusted to. um those kind of things. Cameron says, I'm making a pantheon for my game, be one of the creator goddesses of luck who made the universe for a game. She walks the cosmos looking for risks and risk takers. See, and that's another thing too, right? The gods that walk the earth, and literally they could walk the earth, but they could be looking to recruit people for their purpose, right? Looking for risk takers. It could be someone, and mind you, either they not haven't engaged in the activity the god wants, or maybe they've already put themselves into it, and the god finds favor for them, even if that individual doesn't want the attention. It's the mountain climber that climbs to the top, is climbing up the mountain, you know, or the rock climber or something, and then the god's standing up on the ledge and is like, I'm proud of you. I want you to join me. And the person's like, could you not distract me? I'm trying to climb this mountain here. And the godling is like, no, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm really like, you're really impressive. I want you to become part of me. I want to, give you my favor. And that individual may or may not even want to have that attention. Like, go away, go find somebody else. Cameron goes on to say, there are other worshipped beings, but they are not gods or are aspects of Lady Luck. Also, the status of the gods could be one in which, as a mortal, you really can't measure who's more powerful than the other. They don't really have any stats. But within the godlings themselves, you could make up your own status, whether it's like demigod, avatar, elder god, primordial, like you could have your own ranking status. Going back to the classic Greek gods, they had, Hercules was a demigod, half mortal, half god. Then there are the children of the gods, which you kind of get the impression that they are weaker in power, although they don't have stats in history. But when Zeus gives birth to a number of these monsters, are we to assume that those monsters are less powerful than Zeus? Yeah, their kids are less powerful. Zeus and Hera being at the top of their game, and everybody else is kind of below them, running around doing their own thing. So yeah, absolutely. Now, along with the gods walking the earth, some of them can walk the earth in disguise. In the comic book universe with Thor, Odin would visit Thor plenty of times as like a homeless man or a hermit or something, and Thor could never see through Odin's disguise, despite the fact that he would meet somebody else with a big white beard and a eye patch. But anyway, the gods being a disguise is a thing, watching over people, and the so they could be hidden walking the earth, as well as the gods actually visiting people, in their mortal forms. Now, when I said that the gods have no stats, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't have stats. If they are an avatar of themselves, if they have just basically like trying to find Mickey Mouse in Disney World, this might just be a small portion of the god or godling on Earth, whereas their main divinity is somewhere else, right? Thor can appear with 500 hit points and a hammer that does 2d 100 damage or something like that, and whatever. You could give them Thor stats, and sure, the player characters may or may not be able to have an arm wrestling match with Thor, or maybe Thor's sent on a mission that's counter to the player characters, and they fight off Thor, but you could never kill Thor. You could dispatch them temporarily, right? So you could attach stats. Maybe the god wants to have a conflict with a mortal to see how powerful they are. That's a classic motivation themselves for an evil, big, bad, evil deity, right? I'm not evil. I'm just challenging you to see who could usurp my throne, and whoever's worthy of usurping my throne gets to take it. So maybe Hades is like, hey, you could become the new Lord of the Underworld because I'm kind of bored. Take me down with my 1,000 hit points and level 30 in all classes and take me out. And oh, you did it, great. You killed me. I know you struggled there, but I was just testing you. I'm out. Here's my helmet. Go capture some people and bring them down here, right? Cameron says, what are godlings generally? Like, are they like Hercules or Perseus? Because I always considered them to be demigods. Yeah, you know what? It's hard to say, right? Because sometimes demigods are described as being otherworldly, but they've ascended to godhood, whereas Hercules and like Perseus, maybe even Achilles, are basically mortals with like superpowers in a way. Like Hercules. Oh, I'm a mortal, but of course I'm the strongest person in the world. Or Achilles. I'm the golden haired, golden skinned warrior that man killer, but I have one weakness. My skin can't be pierced except for that one weakness. I think Baldar in of Baldar's Gate. The name, by the way, in Norse mythology was the same way. Skin couldn't be pierced except with what was it, like an arrow with mistletoe or something? No, something else. Anyway, I'm conflating different mythologies and then getting them wrong, which makes me doubly wrong. But you get my purpose. And I agree with you, Cameron. Like, what's the difference between one or the other? According to the new WotC Mythic Odysseys of Theros, they suggest that player characters be demigods, right? You're born. You not only were you the chosen one, you have the blood of Poseidon, or the blood of Set running through your veins. You are. Imagine an Egyptian styled game where Set comes to visit one of the player characters. It's like you are of you are birthed from my loins, and the person's like, no, I'll never be evil like you. It's like, father, you know and he's like, oh, you are my child, you will come to me, daughter, you will see the way. And she's just like, hell no, but still has the power to like shape change into like scorpions, or like a buzzard or something like that, or creating sandstorms and whatnot. I mean, sure, yep, embrace your destiny. No, that's impossible. Right? Demigodhood, right? Is Luke a demigod from a person who's one of the most powerful? I mean, it depends on how you would like to set something like that up. Now, in a setting, now I mentioned earlier that about the gods being mortal. Cameron says you had the mistletoe bit right. Loki shot Baldar with it. Mistletoe was the only thing Odin didn't ask to not harm Baldar. I don't know. I don't remember how Loki figured it out, though. I don't remember either. And I know Loki was like of course, the trickster / investigator, uncoverer of mysteries and things. And yep, yep. Cameron says Anakin was a Force baby. Sure was born not of mortal loins, but of a power greater than everything around them. So, could you claim that Darth Vader statistically was a demigod that couldn't be defeated until the DM was like, yeah, you've gotten to the point where I think you've got stats to fight him, right? Could be, but yeah. What was it? Odin asked all the things in the world not to harm Baldar because he was like the most pure of heart and purpose or something. So yeah, like, could you imagine playing like a barbarian in this world? And the reason it's not that you have barbarian rage, but the gods or your parents or whichever parent gave birth to you or blessed you or something, you have resistance to like bludgeoning, slashing, piercing because the gods asked everything else to not harm you. I think that makes perfect sense. Or my shield spell isn't a spell that I cast, but one of the gods stepping in front of the attacks that come towards me to smack them aside or something, right? Deadman says the blind god Hod. I know I mispronounced that. Deceived by the evil Loki, killed Baldar by hurling mistletoe, the only thing that could hurt him. Yeah, and oftentimes mythology is created by mortal things having happened, and then we elevate them into mythology, right? So it's also possible that all of the pantheon that you're trying to create could have been real actions by mortals, but we've elevated them into the realm of mythology. You know, the idea that a small, weak member of the community in one shot kills the biggest, baddest person on the other side of the army, right, could be turned into something very mythological, even though that particular act may have happened in the mortal realm in the not too distant past, right? Yeah, Cameron says, I hate how different sources are for Norse mythology, but I also think it makes it fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tesla puts in a list of like the deified rankings: over deity, greater gods, intermediate gods, lesser gods, demigods, and quasi deities. Uh, hmm. Over deities, omnipotent level reality warpers capable of manipulating the entire universe, or at least the world, at will. Within their own universe, they are believed to be omnipotent embodiments or concepts. And I was going to get into that. Yep. Dead Man brings like David versus Goliath from the Bible. Exactly. Although I didn't want to. I'm. This is a tabletop role playing live broadcast, so we're talking specifically about role playing games. And yes, how true to life versus how mythological the individuals are is could also be a reality in our tabletop role playing games. The is the story of David and Goliath in your world, meaning names we've changed the names to protect the innocent, right? Is is the is there a godling that represents the small, minuscule individual, David, who's killed the great giants and whatnot? And are they the progenitors of the war between humanity and the giants? And there's a god of the giants who's been pissed off ever since because the small godling that represents the small, minuscule person one shot at him, you know? Maybe? Or was this just a story that was made bigger? Now, concerning with Tesla putting in the different levels of the gods. Here's something else I think sometimes we tend to ignore in creating a pantheon is that all the gods do not need to be human. So while I am saying, oh, the gods walk the earth and they're just walking around like regular people, eating and drinking and having sexual congress with various animals, like you do, right? Maybe the gods aren't human at all, you know? Hairlessum. I'm gonna call you Hair. Hey, Harry. Says, yeah, I'm waiting to see this for a change. Why? Thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn and taking part in it. I am your morning coffee, dulcet tones in your ear hole. Furry god. All right, Cookmaster. Furry gods. I'm talking about. Well, technically, yes. uh, oh, Steve. Okay, I didn't recognize your handle there, Steve. Hairless RN. I'm going to call you Hairless from now on, Steve. Uh, anyway, Red Dice Diary says they did a similar thing in the TV series Lucifer, where he complained that he never had a chance to tell his side of the story. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, wait, what about my side? And which is a thingism with the gods, right? Everyone thinks that like the the gods of the classic like fire, death, shadow, evil, destruction are always like they're the bad guy, we're the good guys, and they're like, wait a minute, what about my side? But going to Cuckmaster 63 comment about furry gods. What I mean by the gods not being human is that they don't even need to have a humanistic form or even communication or thoughts, right? Beings that are, if you want to have the gods seem like they are well above human um, human motivations, you can, the god of the sun god is the sun, never talks to you, just shines down, never makes a sound, sends images that are like blinding light into your brain. That's it. Doesn't involve itself with the petty squabbles, and usually those are re- reserved for like concepts or elemental gods, right? The god of the sun or the moon tends to not be a person, tends to be an entity, an energy source. So those are also possibilities for adding into your pantheon as well. Yeah, and like Hairless says, winners write the histories. They sure do. Oh yeah, like um, uh, the the concept of asking why doesn't the United Kingdom celebrate 4th of July in the United States? It's because no one celebrates their failures. Everyone celebrates their successes, right? Yeah, we celebrate our independence. The other country doesn't celebrate their failure to keep them from gaining their independence. So yeah, winners celebrate their rewrite history to celebrate their winnings. They don't talk about the losses, and that could be like remember, the gods might not know everything, so in your world there may be plenty of mysteries even the gods don't know, giving them weaknesses, giving them limitations. Maybe there is, to explain some of the things in classic Dungeons and Dragons, maybe the gods really can't read the minds of their faithful and followers. So when you're a 5th level cleric and the cleric's like, well, the gods know what I'm thinking. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't grant you spells, they grant you power. You just have the ability to form them in the spells, so they kind of can't take it away from you. That's always been an issue with me. Like, if the gods give clerics their power, how come the gods don't tell them what to do with it? You know, maybe that's a pact they made long ago and they can't find where the pact is. Like, we promised to do this thing and damn it, we can't take it back, Maybe that's the thing. Cameron says, I don't know, man. I bring Jesus into D&D sometimes, like making a cross with my fingers at a vampire or mimicking chanting monks. We have paladin as a class. Sounds like a Templar to me. No, oh, no, no, no. I absolutely positively agree with you. And that's something I I don't mean to I didn't want to go down this path, but it's making me think of it, so I'll mention it. Um, a lot of our depictions of clerics in Dungeons and Dragons and being faithful tends to be pretty Christian slash Eurocentric in their depictions, whereas we could pull from other cultures in terms of their depictions and things like and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying it might just be a commonality that we do that a lot of times. I know I default to that in many ways unconsciously, and maybe it's something we could just pull from other cultures and races and things from around the world in terms of how their depictions and how they worship their gods and things. Are they blindly accepting of what the gods say, or do they throw their fists in the air all the time and punish them? I know you guys know that I deliver mail, and the community that I deliver in is majority Jewish. And from my anecdotal dealings with a lot of the people that are Jewish, they throw their fists in the air all the time to God, right? Like, it's like they don't literally cuss him out, but it's like they have this love-hate relationship, whereas others are like, it's love or nothing. Either you love a divinity or get out my face, whereas others are like more casual about it, like, no, it's just my best friend and we talk all the time. And why not do that? Why not have that in a setting where there are gods, where a person's upset and they're sitting under a tree and they're crying, and the guy comes around the corner from the tree. He's like, "What's up?" And the person's like, "I don't know. I think I made the wrong decision." Like maybe they're not just falling on their knees and crying and going, "I'm looking in the face of a god." Maybe they're just like, it's just they come around, talk to me, not even surprised by it. Godlings are, well, maybe I can help you out. I'm like, no, I need to solve this on my own, right? And the god's like, you know what, it's your life. You get to do what you want. Just to let you know that I'm here for you if you need me. And I'm like, nah, I'm cool, Thor. Thor's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go kill a dragon. Yell out if you need me. Like, nah, I know what to do. I'm gonna ask her out to the dance, right? It could be that kind of thing. Um, yeah. I'm losing you guys just a little bit. Okay, here we go. Red Dice says, it's an interesting point. If Christianity doesn't exist in your game, do vampires flee from other holy symbols? That's true. And what do those holy symbols look like? Or maybe there is some other depiction that we replace the holy symbols with, right? Instead of a cross, does it look like something different? Or if there are no crosses at all, because the cross has a specific historical connotation to it, is it, do people make signs in the air? Is there like a painting or a tattoo? Maybe it's some kind of plant that people pin to their clothing, like, it's the garlic thing, right? Like maybe there's something that replaces an actual symbol in and of itself, like closing their eyes and turning their back to a vampire makes the vampire disappear, right? Maybe that's a real, like a realism where if you're confronted by a vampire, close your eyes, turn around, and make a chant, and that vampire will disappear. Will not exist to you. You won't hear them. They won't hurt you. They've literally ceased to exist for you. For everyone else, it's still around, right? That could be a thing. I don't know. I pulled that out of my ass, but right. Yep, and the camera kind of runs along the line with me. It's like, yeah, says, oh, true. I guess that would be common in a lot of games. I don't tend to play Western fantasy and D&D much. Oh, okay, all right. Uh, Deadman says in D&D Third Edition and later, vampires recoil from a presented holy symbol if that holy symbol is for a god or a good alignment or otherwise opposed to the undead. Yeah, and like like Harold says, like whose version of vampires? Multiple cultures, multiple weaknesses. Absolutely, some vampire, and you could go down the rabbit hole with vampirism as a thing, right? Like, do they eat flesh? Do they drain blood? Do they invade your? Do they drain your memories? Do they cause nightmares? That kind of thing. Like you, and the same thing I feel like goes with the gods, right? So in terms of how do how what is our interaction with the gods in a particular setting? Like, does a god speak to you in your dreams, or do you have nightmares or vision quests, or do you see omens in the trees or in fire, or heck, does your flesh get flayed by an unseen servant that sends to you messages from a fiend from the nine hells or something like that? Now, to go further on, and I'm going to talk about this quite a bit in tomorrow for third pillarisms, but another thing about having gods in a setting that we tend not to do is, because we are a scientific style modern society, we tend to overlay that in our fantasy, right? The planet is round. There is gravity. We have a day and night cycle because the planet spins, not because the gods have decided to make it day and night. And so when humanity is in the hands of unfeeling gods, we could shape our world so that it has nothing to do with science, but has everything to do with gods. What I mean by that is, for example, the player characters travel to a distant land where the god of fire is in existence. Maybe there you can never extinguish a fire. Ever. If you light a fire, a campfire, you can't extinguish it. No matter what you do. Torrential rain, sand, fire pops right back up again, right? Now, imagine a player character who is unaware of this, or maybe they are aware. Maybe the community, of course, has it's they don't like random fires because out of honor. And the fact is that you cannot put out a fire physically. You can't put it out emotionally, right? So um, if you cast a fireball and it explodes, maybe it constantly burns in that location, and which could be pretty nasty, right? But yeah, that kind of thing could be pretty bad. The RN says barbarian rage is really a trance granted by your god. Oh yeah. Oh, isn't there? I swear, is it the Unearthed Arcana has the zealot barbarian subclass? I believe where you're a religious zealot. Oh, hell's yes. There's if you take a like barbarian rage is like granted by your god, like today, we have a number of religious zealots that do it around our world, and I don't mean this not necessarily bad or good, but there are people who can so um so delve into their connection with their faith that physically they feel nothing, right? It's the people who walk uh during a particular ceremony that flay their flesh and wear the crowns of spikes and such, that walk the streets and flay their flesh, and they feel a joy in it, right? There are the flagellants, man, that walk down the streets and you're just sitting there going like, what the, oh my god, for me, from my point of view, I'm like cringing because I don't want to see it, but I'm actually squinting out of my eye watching it and stuff. Yeah, but who knows what lengths you can go to. And as a matter of fact, we know people who are far more willing than a little bit to end their lives in support and dedication to their gods, lighting themselves on fire, blowing themselves up, all those things, right? We've seen that. Either and their motivation might be through peace or war, but either way, we know that people have the ability to do that. So why wouldn't it? Yep, yep, yeah. Fall before the plague god Nurgle. Nurgle. Does anyone know much about any African pantheons? I'm always excited to learn more about them. There's a spider god in one pantheon that is benevolent, which is super cool. There is I can't post it up right now, but I have them. The, one of the things in like African, this isn't specific to African pantheons, but one of the things related to African pantheons is not. Yep, there it is. Anasi. Yeah, yep. There, there are conceptual gods that have nothing to do with gaming it, but like they might, for example, I believe there are twin gods that they are intrinsically tied together. I think there is a mother child god as well, and I I'll try to find the post. There was a photographer that used, if you can Google it, I'm sure like Dead Man of Tesla would easily find this. There's a photographer that decided to find models and took pictures of them and then had them like CGI modified for a pantheon of African gods. There's about 20 or 30 photographs that are really good. I mean, they are really good, and that depict many of these African gods. And you would be surprised at the good versus evil, and how gaming wise we assume, well, like you said, like spiders are evil, right? And they're like, well, no. The Africanized version is like, no, they're spiders are spiders. Um, we just depict those things like bats and rats and spiders as being evil, but that may not necessarily be the case. Yeah, thanks, Red Dice Diaries posted in the Discord. Yep, a list of African mythological figures, and if you ever wanted to use the images, I, I I'll try to post it in the Discord if I can find it, because I know I've got the photographs, but they're absolutely excellent. Uh, Mental fuel, as a matter of fact. Sorry, reading up in the. You guys passed by me a little bit there. Yeah, Deadman says actually it would be more the god Slanish whose worshippers use self-flagellation. Yeah, he's a god, but he's Charlie says he's a god, but he's also like Hercules because of how many stories he plays a part in. Let's see if there it is. That's it. Thank you very much. For those who do not know, yep, thank you very much for that, Tesla. Oh, and I think you can. You know what? Never mind. I'll copy it. Um, I'm just going to post this up into the other things. The photographs are excellent, and just because it's something close to my heart, um, I'm going to post it up. Thank you very much, there, Tesla. That's the link to the Yoruba African or Orishas. Yep, coyote of the Native American stories, and that was I was actually heading down a path. I got a little squirrely here, heading down the path of how the gods don't necessarily need to be human. If a PC is followed by a wolf or a coyote or a raven, like a storm raven or something like that, could be a thing in this particular world. And if the world is shaped by, thank you very much for that. If the world is shaped by the gods and what they are doing, they might take favor on people or individuals that are doing the thing, right? Like Cameron talks about, like coyote. Coyote is one of my favorite gods. Maybe the coyote god is following the PCs, their tribal PCs or something, rangers and druids or something, going along, watching what they're doing, and then takes favor on them when they are engaging in things that the god finds beneficial to them. So imagining, like, for example, something very subtle could happen. PCs go to camp out at night. They know they're surrounded by enemies. They're injured. They want to settle down for the night. Maybe the coyote walks into the camp, and for some reason, the PCs aren't scared or surprised. Maybe the coyote just curls up next to the ranger while he's sleeping against his bedroll, and the coyote lays there. And the next day, the ranger wakes up, hand lazily draped over the coyote, and the coyote decides to leave. And of course, the coyote leaves. Ranger can't find him after the coyote turns about around the tree or something. But now the ranger has their spells back, or is healed, or whatever, has some kind of boon or something, is able to see in the dark, or able to able to summon a pack of other coyotes to help him fight. Like, that could be it could be subtle but powerful. And like, there, Red Dice, yeah, man, dude. Red Dice says, Diary says those photos are amazing. Oh, absolutely. Though when I saw that, I was like, that is sweet. The it's almost like a photographer and slash cosplay of African gods. And if you take a look at them as an example of gods and what their representations are, you could like, for example, like there's the first one that comes up is Aganju, an African deity of volcanoes and deserts, and also father of Sango, listed as brother in other stories. And so, do volcanoes and deserts have anything to do with each other? Yes, but sometimes we think no. Yep, god of African diseases and illnesses, African deity of physical health and wellness, and also medical physician to the gods. Like, how often do we have, say, gods of like physical health, like working out, uh, lifting weights? Not very often, but sure, why not? Um, Red Dice says Kevin Crawford did an OSR game a while back that was inspired by African mythology called Spears of the Dawn. I'm always interested. I'm still working on a setting that is very Afrocentric, but I'm trying to bend it a little bit. So I'm still working on one, and it's like I'm trying to break the code as it is. like like a writer writing a movie, right? It's like it needs a little more something. It needs something to make it a twist to make it different. I think I'm there, but I haven't narrowed it down yet. Yep. Charlie Square says Apollo is a god of health and medicine. Yeah, we often relate, like, again, we gamify a lot of our pantheon, but a lot of times in our own mythology, the gods have relationships with things that are socially make sense, but gaming wise don't make a lot of sense, right? For example, if you were to insert Apollo into Dungeons and Dragons, Apollo would probably have domain over fire and light and medicine, maybe even the air or in daylight. Like, heck, even I don't know, how would you call it, like watcher above the sky, in the sky kind of thing. Um, Charlie says farming is the major one. Farming, harvests, those kind of things. So yeah, some things aren't exactly connected to each other. Cameron says, "Oh wow, if the photos I'm looking at are the same ones you're talking about, they are super cool." That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those are the photographs that I'm talking about in terms of like depicting gods. They just happen to be African gods, but uh, I I would I would challenge a photographer to do that with many, if not all, of the gods from around the world. Like I would love to see like Indian gods, Norse gods done in that manner with like with models and a little bit of like digital readjusting, that kind of thing. Oh my goodness! All right, so lastly, I'm going to say when world creating with the gods, stepping away a little bit from the individual ones and going to the pantheon, um, having the world shaped by the gods themselves. Like, for example, maybe there is a god of industry in the city that has a city that um, the people have never created the city, but the god. Oh, thanks, Cameron. Cameron's like, please keep that setting going, DBJ. I love to play in that. I have a screenshot of another Afrocentric setting. I'll leave you a comment with the name later. It might spark some ideas. Oh yeah, and mind you, because I'm an inclusive individual, it's not because I don't. I want to create an Afrocentric setting that is not specifically designed for people to feel like, well, that just means I have to be an African in Africa, right? Although, to be honest with you, there are many like faux Japanese settings that are exactly the same way, and there's lots of Eurocentric settings that are exactly the same way. But I'm trying to what I'm trying to the code I'm trying to break is not to make it. I don't want to make it tribal. I guess is my thing. I'm mentally I've moved past that part, but I still want to embrace this idea. And I think one of the things, yeah, Rickard, one of the things I'm probably going to put in it is a kind of like a bond, or um, there's going to be a mechanic in it that players have attachments to community, because community is a big thing, and the stronger your attachments to persons, places, things, and ideals, the greater your character is, measured by like levels and powers and things like that. But I want to make it as simple as possible. So yeah, that's just a personal thing. Anyway, worlds shaped by the gods, I think, is a great setting mechanism when with a pantheon, because you can come up with a lot of very funky different combinations. A perfect example I'm going to give you is in this is the wrong book, but this role playing game Within the Ring of Fire. It's probably reflecting. There it is. Okay, role playing game Within the Ring of Fire. They have races. They created races in the game, and the races are created from, of course, the gods, right? The gods gave birth, or not literally gave birth, but they birthed the different, they call them species instead of races, species in the game. And the way they were created was by, as each god has a particular domain, when two of those gods come together, um, by mixing those two domains, they created that race. And so there's a race of people who are the combination of fire. I believe it's fire and earth, or earth representing like steel, iron, and that kind of thing. And so the species is allergic to water and any kind of fluid. So they never drink anything, they don't wash, right? They don't swim because it's actually poisonous to them, and they actually bathe by taking hot coals and fire and rubbing their skin with it. And I was like, that's a great world building concept, that if a god of fire plus a god of earth combined together, what kind of race would they create? And they created these people, the Vigish, I believe they're called, and they don't drink water. They can't swim. It's literally poisonous to them. They don't even like their skin coming in contact with water. And of course they've never become boat sailors, shipwrights, anything like that. They completely despise it. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So why couldn't the world be shaped that way? For example, let's say there is God of the Moon. Who's to say that when you travel over to a particular place that the sun never rises? The moon is always high in the sky. And sure, it may not make sense in a astrological sense that the sun doesn't rise simply because you crossed the border into another country. But when you're in the hands of of angry gods, who's to say that the gods haven't manipulated the world to fall in accordance with the pantheon that they belong to? You know, yeah, yep. There's always that excuse of like, yeah, Rickard, like a wizard did it, right? There's always because magic. So why not take that and take it to the extreme? Yep, Charlie Squares says it sounds like the Vigish from within the Ring of Fire. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Um, as as pertains to the world being shaped by the gods specifically, right? They even have the Freyine. The Freyine are from light and dream, I believe, and so the much like in Dungeons and Dragons, when elves have that shorter rest period because they go into a meditative state, their Freyine, their elves, or their elven equivalent, are live in both the material world and the dream world. So maybe you have a race of people because there's a dream god that birthed this race or species of people that maybe over time, as they get older, they dream more and are physically here less, and when they die, they go into the dream world, right? Or something like that, talking about shaping the people, shaping the landscape. Um, Imagine a landscape shaped by a god of like trickery or illusion, where there's a bridge that if you believe in the illusion, you can walk across the bridge, but if you disbelieve it, you'll fall through it. and the people there have the ability to both believe and or disbelieve in the illusions as they see fit for their own purposes. Like, imagine trying to fight and someone's fighting with an illusionary sword, and if you believe the sword and they believe in the sword, they can use it to hit you. But if they disbelieve it, it can just pass through, someone that they want it to pass through. Or you go to pick up the sword after you disarm them, but your hand goes through it because they're just like, nah, it's just an illusion. And they could either kill you because it's a real sword, or you wake up, or you're just stunned because even though they stabbed you through the heart, it was just an illusion, right? And either or could be a truism, um, like Schrodinger's cat. Maybe both are true at the exact same time by these people that live in this land, and how dangerous would that be? Again, going back to the god of industry builds a city because the people don't actually build anything. They pray to the gods, and the god like twists and shapes and forms the city, expanding it, it's growing like a fungus, but it's literally like paved streets and pillars and awnings and parks and bridges and catwalks and stuff, and it's just spreading a little bit at a time, and the people are just like, whatever. City moving like a maze. Like, what's the old movie? Dark, not Dark Circle, Dark Fate. I can't remember. Yeah, the red dice is gods of metal and fire. Yep, Charlie brings up the goblins of Hob Apophis, the hobgoblins, the goblins of Hob Apophis. Yeah, Dark City. That's it. It was Dark City. It's Dark City, where the people go to sleep and then the city literally shifts and changes and warps while they're sleeping. Why couldn't a god have a city that's gotten their blessings that does this? And you try to dominate the city, like their enemies rush into the city and you never see them again. And they're like, there are no walls. How come no one's ever dominated the city? It's because when the armies go into the city, they get lost down these dark passages and alleyways and sewer systems, and they get lost and they just keep getting lost and wandering forever and ever until there's just bones left. Why not have a city? Why not have a place shaped by the gods? Now, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow for Third Pillar Thursday, but whatever. Rickard says, you're either Indiana Jones or you're not. Simply walk over the bridge and find out which. Right. Is it illusion? You're going to have to walk ahead on faith, right? And step forward, I mean, you could absolutely positively reshape the world. And just as a preamble for tomorrow, how many times have we used a charisma saving throw for any reason in Dungeons and Dragons? Just think about that for a minute, right? You don't make charisma saving throws to not fall into a pit or dodge a fireball or not get poisoned. Not too many for spells. Not too many charisma saving throws. Now they use charisma to cast a spell. There are mental afflictions, but a lot of them are like wisdom or intelligence saves versus charisma. But when it comes to environmental effects or like traps or things of that nature, it's not too many. There are some. I'm not saying there aren't. There's a few, but far more of them are dex saves, con saves, a bunch of strength saves. But imagine like you're sailing in a ship and there's a thunderstorm and the god of thunder or one of the avatars of thunder. Let's say there's a sky god and one of the demigods is a god of thunder. There's a god of clouds, god of thunder, god of soft breezes. The god of thunder and lightning there is like throwing lightning bolts down into the ocean and trying to strike your ship. Maybe, just maybe, you can have a charisma check against the storm itself, speaking to the god as the god's face is in the clouds, getting ready to take another lightning bolt. Maybe it's not navigating around a storm or dodging it or piloting it or anything. Maybe it's a charisma check to see if you can convince the storm god to let you pass, right? Maybe it's to go through the mountain pass and not get crumbled by a mountain-sized face on the side of the mountain that can easily crush you. Maybe you would never survive a strength check, or there's no way to make a dex check over 12 kilometers of falling stone. But maybe you could talk to the spirit of the stone to at least temporarily let you pass by, right? Where the aspect of the gods is in the world to allow a thing to happen for you to survive, and narratively it is right. Yep, exactly. Like like Charlie Square says, I will persuade the earth god to save me. Exactly, right? Like, how many times have people prayed when they're in harm's way? Maybe if you pray hard enough, i.e., make that charisma save, maybe one of the other gods will step forward. How many mythological heroes have prayed to the gods and the gods have stepped forward to temporarily let them pass? I brought up Conan the other day. In the classic Conan movie, Conan prayed to Crom, and Crom stepped in. Deus Ex Machina, plot armor. Do you want to live forever? Block sword, ching. Yeah, could have killed Conan, but whatever. It was a one-on-one DMing game, and you don't want to kill off your main character. It's just you and another player. So what happened? Crom, bless me in this battle, or to hell with you. What happened? Crom showed up. So there's lots of things that we could, and again, me saying Crom showed up, Crom didn't really show up. But Crom, according to the movie, the classic 80s movie or whatever, Crom made it so that Conan was saved not necessarily Crom, the god himself. So if you really want to go deep into it, lots of gods have avatars and messengers. Heck, a loved one that has passed that went on to Valhalla could show back up again by the blessing of one of the gods, right? The gods don't necessarily need to show up themselves, but if you're a cleric that if you're and you don't even, okay, let's take this back. Your character class is not religious at all. Like, you're not a cleric, you're not a druid, you're not a paladin. But your rogue who has a faith in the sun god for some strange reason, you're a rogue, sun god, whatever. Okay, maybe you're, whatever the case may be, right? Maybe you do run around in the shadows, but you really wish you had a greater relationship with the sun god, but the circumstances said no, and you pray to the sun god. Maybe a flash of light blinds one of the guards to let you slip by. Maybe you're in a pitched battle with an enemy, and sunlight glints off of your blade, just right angle that blinds your enemy to allow you to stab him in the throat, right? Was that it? Could that be interpreted as coincidence? Sure. Could it be interpreted as God stepping forward? Yes, as well. Yep, divine guidance is still the God saving you. Yep, the guidance spell, right? The bless spell. Why? Why is a cleric really blessing you, or is a cleric begging the gods, like, could you please bless us? And one of the gods' avatars comes down and goes, yeah, I'll do that. And a celestial angel shows up singing a song, and everyone is reinforced by the song of the angel singing. The cleric just begged for something good to happen, and that goodness happened to happen that way, right? So, heck, even a cleric could cast a guidance spell, but it's not the cleric speaking. It could be the words of a god speaking out of the mouth of the cleric themselves, using them as a medium to then enchant whoever that they're doing. Whereas the cleric's like, I have no idea what just happened. Like, but you just spoke words. I didn't hear the words. I don't know what happened. Right? I never, the cleric's like, I never see what happens. Everyone else receives the benefit, but I don't see it. I don't feel it. Charlie Square says a charisma check would be great. Maybe there could be a charisma-based skill for spirits similar to animal handling. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. And you could recontextualize the world where, like, instead of ghosts and banshees automatically being like enemies, maybe they're just spirits. Maybe they just happen to be around in the world, and depending on your relationship, they are or aren't there. Oh, that's funny. Around the world in 80-day jobs. Oof. Ooh. I gotta see that. That crit should have killed you, but as the monster's attack would seem to slow down, you can move normally so that you get your sword ready to block the attack just as the world speeds up to normal. Thank you, Hermes. Like Rickard's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Everything slows down in slow motion. And you're moving at the normal speed, like, what the hell's going on? And you start like running through your enemies, attacking them one by one as you slash through your enemy, and the blood is squirting out in slow motion as you take another hack with your sword, and the blood starts squirting out in a little bit of slow motion. They're going like, right? Hey, maybe it sounds cool. Maybe that's how your fighter uses their action surge, right? I mentioned that before, right? Maybe your action surge is literally super speed, Cameron's like, God handling was a skill Hera definitely had to train in. God handling. Hera's like, damn it, I crit fumbled again. Zeus. Zeus is like, ha, 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 taking the key and unlocking the cage around his tallywhacker. Right. Rickard says, I'm thinking more basically turning that crit into a miss, just explained with divine guidance. Of course. Who's to say that a crit fail might not be a failure at all? Zeus the goose. Yeah, maybe a crit failure could be the god stepping in. You get ready to strike your enemy down. It's the killing blow, and then the god steps in and is like, warns you about, um, taking the life of a person who's down or something like that. And you're like, what the? Charlie's like, Zeus was more about manhandling, if you know what I mean. Oh, yeah. Why do you think he wore robes? Because of the easy access, right? Like, wow, 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 right? Oh, man. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me for this Whirlwind Wednesday. Just to let you know, later today, I will be on Nerdarchy Live. Nerdarchy, if you are unfamiliar with Nerdarchy anyway, they are, of course, a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. But they also have a new channel called Nerdarchy Live, where each day, noon, they have an interview, and I will be on the show with Dave. So that should be pretty cool. Haven't spoken to him in a long time, let alone live. So, and you know me, I'm going to have to bring up, being the third pillar-ist of the tabletop RPG community. So if you want to tune in for that, you can go ahead and tune that in. I left the links scattered around social medias, so you can find that. You might want to check that out later on, or check it out later, period. And again, guys, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Just like, share, subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends. Maybe somebody has too much iron in their diet, and it's really hard for them to pinch a loaf, and you're like, you know what, if you listen to a show, 5 out of 4 doctors always say, it'll loosen up your bowels there, get you get your little Hershey squirting going on there. So anyway, guys, by the way, just unapproved by the FDA. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see you tomorrow for Third Pillar Thursday. Bye. I will see you later. Oops. Awkwardly getting the video outro. There we go.